We are live. This is not just another live streaming where you just sit down, and just listening. We also will be happy to hear from you. You can put, first of all, where you're listening from on the chat. And if you can't put your country where listening from, you could put the continent where you're listening from, either North America, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia. Just put it in the live chat, and we'll be so happy, to respond to your queries, especially if you have one. There are someone in particular, was asking if they could ask a question which is uh, different from the topic we were discussing on Saturday, and we are very open, to uh, hearing people's out, even when you have a different opinion or topic. Please feel free to let us know. I'll be happy to even take it on, or maybe in another live streaming. And obviously, we'll be having this live streaming going forward. We'll be having it to start with uh, on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, pending the time that we're able to get stabilized a little bit and have a proper structure. We have a structure for it now. We just felt that at some point we are very flexible, and we want to see the need to really, really tighten the schedule very well. So we want to hear from you. Wherever you're watching from, please put it in the chat. And throughout this broadcast, we are going to ask a few questions. Don't just watch. We will appreciate if you can participate. Tell us what you think in the live chat. And obviously, when the live streaming is done, we might not have the opportunity of viewing the live chat anymore, but you can still be able to reach out to us in the comment, from the record that must have been published on YouTube. So for those of us joining us for the first time, today Open Diary is a platform where we look at real world issues. We hear from ordinary people, first of all, on the street, on the beach, harbor, malls, name it, stadium, any public space where they were able to speak. We are able to speak with them, have interviews with them, have very, wonderful conversations with people who are very knowledgeable in their areas of field. But then again, as ordinary people, they kind of respond to all the questions that we're asking them. And we have all of this published on our YouTube channel. So we have over 280 videos now, just approaching 300 videos within the space of 2 months that we launched the outdoor interviews. And so far, it has really, really been amazing with the level of knowledge, exposure, insight, education, that people have been, you know, kind of responding to anytime we ask them. And the live chat for us is just a platform where we could have the opportunity of reaching those that we would not have been able to meet them in person. So just also giving the global world a space, to be able to lend their own views on topical issues in Canada, in America, and the world, because again, we are all one, and we don't want to leave the world and just concentrate solely, in North America. We are also very concerned about what is happening in Asia, very concerned in what is happening in Africa. We'll be taking on some topics there in the coming weeks, as it may be. And we're very concerned about what is happening, across the globe. That is one area that we feel strongly we are obligated to, do something about it. And obviously, the podcasting side, we've not launched it yet. We'll be doing the launching in the coming months or weeks, as the case may be. But the podcasting gives us the avenue to dive deep into those topics where we have experts in those areas that will come in and be able to help us through digesting, diving deep into all these topical issues that we're all confronted with. And most importantly, we also have the channel as a platform to inspire the next generation of people. And with this ecosystem within TOD, Today Open Diary, we don't just have one way of telling stories. We have this different ecosystem of telling stories outdoor. We speak to the public, the live streaming, we discuss the issue with online community. The podcast, we go deeper with experts and our guests, and our short videos kind of take the best moment and bring those highlights and back to the people, those very germane points that people must have mentioned during our interview, and we're bringing it as short videos for them. So, and our long form videos also allow us to go deeper into those issues, and very soon we'll be having even much more longer videos, especially when we launch the podcast side of the video of the channel. So every week we are going to be live. We're going to be talking about different topics. And this week we've been, I mean, just last week, we've been looking at the Canada-US relation. And obviously today will give us the avenue for us to have updates on the relationship between Canada and the US. So we will be looking into that. And again, we will also be considering how we can navigate cost of living in this part of the world. If you're living in US or you're living in Canada, how you can navigate that, some of the things you can do to just better get yourself better off. And if you're thinking of or planning of moving into Canada, then obviously you don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss it for any reason, because again, this is very, very valuable information that will be useful for you even when you decide to cross the border. And we'll be talking about other, part of the world. And we've been diving closely into what is happening is Nepal, and we don't want to leave it. We felt that we are obligated to do something about it, to talk about it, and to bring it to the world attention that this is a region where that needs our, prayers, that needs our thoughts to be with them at this point in time. So we're going to be asking you what you think about some of this conversation that we're going to be having today. So this is your engaging moment, and we also believe that you will be able to help us, and make it to be more interactive as much as possible. So before we go into today's biggest story, let's try as much as possible to see if you can if we can put our brain teaser, for us to be able to see. We have so yeah, for the brain teaser, we have redesigned it a little bit so that you can, be able to count the number of diaries there. Just 1 second, and will be done. Oh yeah. How's it going in your side? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're safe. Wherever you are, just be safe. I think that's the most important thing. To be safe, to be aware of what is happening even in your environment. That's very important for everyone. Yeah, so very nice. I'm gonna put the brain teaser for us to see, for us to see. Okay, I'll be sharing my screen so that you can see the brain teaser as quickly as possible. Yeah, there you go. And obviously it's reacting how many diaries you see on the shelf, which I kind of redesigned a little bit this time around so that you can put it in the chart, the number of diaries you've seen on the chart. And you can put it on the chart, the number of diaries you've seen. So there you go. Okay. Now back to our conversation. Please put it in the chart, count them, the number of diaries that you've seen. Count them carefully because sometimes you feel that you know them, but then put your answer in the chat. Just count them carefully. So just say I'm seeing maybe, or just put the numbers there, wherever you want to put it. Welcome. So you may say I'm seeing X number of diaries. Just let us know, and or just put in the number. Okay, very nice. Thank you. Oh, thank you for letting us know. Someone says they are seeing. Someone said they are seeing how many? 16. Are you sure you've counted very well? Okay, that's good. Good to know. Very nice. Thank you for letting us know the number of diaries you've seen. We are very appreciative of it. And for others, let's see what you got. If you got it right, put your thumbs in the chat as well. Let us know, please. Thank you so much. Now, the question today will be, what do you think is happening right now between Canada and the US, and what does it actually mean for all, for Canadians, for non-Canadians, for foreigners? Because again, foreigners also flock into these countries. They apply, come into the country, and maybe for visit, temporary workers, or maybe for permanent residents, for temporary status, or maybe for permanent status, or people come into this country for those reasons. And even those that are in the country as well, we are we are of the opinion that, in my own perspective, I feel strongly that the relationship between these two countries have gotten to historic low. And again, I wasn't too surprised when that was mentioned by the Canadian government agencies as well, because they feel strongly that since centuries that these two countries have been, come into existence, there have never been a time where the relationship between these two countries got into the stage. And they share the longest border in the world. Canada and the US are so integrated in the economy that no one would have ever imagined that it's going to get to this point. The relationship between these two countries. And unfortunately, it has gotten to this historic low. And sometimes they tell you that, okay, maybe there's nothing they can do about it, but But then again, I believe that a lot can still be done about it. The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, uh, has already suspended negotiation with the US, and that was pulled off at the last minute uh, on Friday, and that was 2 weeks ago, regarding auto sector in particular, and some future trade autonomy. He mentioned that as well, and the French language protection for Quebec, and that's the province of Quebec, and he asked them to come back to Ottawa. And he felt that all of these issues were as a result of, national sovereignty, and that is not on the table. And the US gave their own version of the story, just for context. And for the US, they were of the opinion, although at some point too, we have different stories and versions to it, but I believe that consistency is also very important, even in their own version, which is also cool for them. And they are of the opinion that the French language protection was not a deal breaker for them, because they might have just mentioned it, but not that it has to be. And if it doesn't happen, then there's no deal. They just kind of give clarification on that front. And I believe I was reading the tweet, the post of the Minister for U.S. relation, Canada-U.S. relation, Dominic, and he was saying that the it was more or less like also mentioning what they said, that it's good to hear that the US is clarifying that uh, the French language protection is not on the table, and there has been really back and forth on this, and there are some representatives from the US who are also saying that it was Canada that changed the whole deal on Friday. Maybe they're saying that as it was going, it's not gonna, be favorable to Canadians. And what they have agreed to earlier on in the week, that was 2 weeks ago, it's not gonna favor Canadians. And they've seen the handwriting on the wall, and that was why they just pull out of, this trade deal. And there are some other conversation around. They kind of came up with the auto sector, and they were talking about the truck industry, and that was part of the deal initially, and the Americans were saying no, that wasn't it. So there were a lot of back and forth conversation, and the public might not necessarily know everything, because it seems as if these negotiations were going on at a closed door, and even the media can't know all that is happening. But at the same time, there are some information that still come out there and there. But the most important thing is that the two sides are not negotiating publicly, and they're not saying the percentage that was or that might be reduced, potentially. And now we have the US administration implementing this 50% tariff on approximately uh, 27.6 billion to 28 billion worth of Canadian goods. And that went into effect last week. And the Canadian retaliation, according to Canadian government, they announced dollar for dollar counter tariff ranging from 15% to 25% to 50%. And roughly that's going to affect the same number, 27.6 billion of US goods. And they're targeting the same, almost the same industry. They're targeting the steel, they're targeting the dairy, the appliances and electronic sectors. They're targeting aluminum. I mean, all of the sectors are also being targeted. And it's going to take effect on September the 8th, which is very close. It's going to be a day after the Labor Day in Canada, and that is very, very close. And one of the things that I see that is very interesting about the US Canadian side is that they keep tweaking their own counter tariff. So the counter tariff of the Canadian was such that they tweak it. Or last week, they removed some tariff on specific goods, specifically the one that will halt the restaurant sector business. Because again, the restaurants has been hit so hard during COVID, and they are struggling already. So having to have a tariff of US, uh, maybe their fish, their meat, coming to Canada, because again, tariff is like taxes on your people. When you put tariff on foreign goods, the producer will most likely transfer the cost to the consumers, and that is very, very clear. I mean, most of the consumers, that's what they're going to do. They'll pass on the cost, and they've seen that if should they do that, it's going to hurt the restaurant business, and they pull out some of these tariff that they've listed, that they've seen, Canadians have seen that it's going to affect the restaurant business. And when they did that, 2 days after, they started adding, they're taking off some tariff from goods, early on last week. And 2 days after, they started adding to it again. They started adding, because I believe that one of the things they wanted to do is that they wanted to ensure that it's dollar for dollar. Because having removed some of those goods, we made that it will reduce the number of the target of the American, worth of Americans' goods from that 27.6 billion dollars. So that has been reduced already. And a few days after, they added some goods to it. And those goods that they added, Canadians believe that is not in any way going to affect them that much, even though we all still know that it's going to affect them, consumers, and even the business owners. Is going to really, really hit on their bottom line, which is their profit. And Canadian government is finding a way to cushion that effect by making sure that revenues generated from this tariff are also going back to businesses to support local businesses. And that's been the taxes of Canadian government all this while. First of all, support the industry, support the sectors that are hit by this tariff. And they've been doing that very well, in my own opinion. They've really, really been doing that very well. They spend billions and billions of dollars in that regard. And part of what they're also doing now is that they will even spend more than the revenue that they may even generate from this tariff on local businesses. And they're doing that really, really well. In fact, in my own opinion, it's becoming like a kind of this palliative measures that you're giving to individuals and families. And in this case, just see it as you're doing that for corporate bodies. And there's the part of the province that are really, really going to be hit from this tariff are Ontario, Quebec, and some other provinces. But those two provinces are taking the hit or from this US tariff, and the Canadian government is finding a way to just make sure that provinces that are hit the most are also being compensated as much as possible. There are some disagreement between provincial premiers on how best to even respond to the US tariff. There has been disagreements. Some of them believe that everything should be on the table, including the oil and gas that about you supply to the states. Doug Ford, in particular, which who happens to be the premier of Ontario, is of the view that that should be on the table. Again, the province of Ontario is saying that they are not ruling out the electricity supply to the US, because interestingly, Canada also supply, power to the US. And in Doug Ford opinion, that should also be on the table. You have to fight. That's according to Doug Ford. You have to fight with everything that you have and fight against the US. And they are seeing the US as the enemies of the state, enemy of Canadian country, And at the same time, uh, the province of Alberta, Daniel Smith, their premier, said, no, if you're going to put electricity on the table, it's within your province. But when it comes to oil and gas in Nevada, we are not going to do that. And she's making a case for it every day. In fact, in my opinion, every day she's making a case for it on her social media platform. She's posting about it, how the US may most likely going to respond if Canadian put oil and gas on the table. And she's so adamant and saying that is not on the table. And I kind of get it too. I mean, she's trying to protect her province. I mean, at the same time, people also feel that at this point it should be Team Canada and not necessarily protecting the province or the other. And they feel that having that relationship, having that responsibility handled by the federal government is a way of making sure that there's no province that is affected, and if some province are hit the most, then federal government should step in and support them, and that will be through the federal government multi-billion dollars support. And then at the same time, there are some funds that have been allocated for diversification to assist affected Canadian workers and industries. They call it like these diversification funds. There are ways in which government is also supporting businesses to be able to identify potential foreign partners who are not Americans. This is going really, really ugly. I personally, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that these two countries are just like in trade war, and it seems as if there's no ending into it. It's just borders. It borders me as much as it borders everybody out there, and it's specifically, it kind of borders Canadians who, and also some Americans too, because again, when it goes into trade war, it's not necessarily about who is going to win. It's basically about who is going to be hurt the most, because again, it doesn't serve anybody. It's not, it's a lose-lose in many cases when it comes to trade war. I want to encourage these two parties to perhaps maybe get back on the negotiation table. That's the way I feel strongly that we can get out of this mess that we find ourselves at this point in time. So it's very, very, very important, this relationship. As we continue on this topic, I also want to put on the live chart again, where are you, what are you seeing, where you, what are you seeing, what are you seeing on the screen in terms of the diary, how many of the diary you're seeing, please put it on the chart. And then again, I also want to ask, do you think Canada is prepared? Do you think America is prepared? That's my question to you as we move on. Do you think Canada is prepared for this trade war, for this trade war? Do you think the US is prepared? Do you think the US is prepared for the trade war? For this trade war, is the Americans prepared for this trade war? That's a question for you and for everyone. And at the same time, especially with the midterm, um, with the midterm election in the state, and especially with some elections that are going on, by elections in Canada, because it's not just only the US that is going on election this time. The The Canadian government is also embarking on some elections, and they call it by-election. Some of them are going to be held in Quebec. Some of them are going to be held in Ontario. These are some of the conversation that we can have. Just put it in the chat what you feel, how you feel these countries, if they are well prepared for this trade war. And the rhetoric for me has escalated things between these two countries because, and there's great much more diplomatic tension between these two countries, which has provoked, you know, the Washington, the rhetoric from the Premier of Ontario, the rhetoric from the leaders of the representative of the US at both sides of the aisle. The rhetoric has not helped in any way, in my opinion. Uh, and there was also an executive order to change the name Lake Ontario to Lake America. That has also sharpened local defiance in Ontario and across Canada. There were a lot of pushback to that. Um, Although Canadians believe that the name is Lake Ontario and it will continue to be Lake Ontario now and always. And that's been the message of the Canadians. And a few days ago, I believe it was 2 days ago, that the Premier of Ontario, uh, you know, installed a very big ball, big post, billboard on the on just beside the Lake Ontario, and it's really going ugly. I believe that this is not needed. I think we should act in ways that both Canadians and American leadership should act in a way that will advance these thoughts to move on. I think that's what is needed at this time. I do know that the government of Canada is signaling willingness to distance itself from US on major military procurement. That has also been on the table, where Canadian government is signing defense and procurements, military procurements from other European counterpart countries for fighters and radar fleets, and they are sidelining the Americans' vendor suppliers uh, and distancing themselves from the Americans. I feel strongly that these are some of the things that Canadian government should have been doing for many years. You can't rely on one country forever and ever. And again, the same also go with EU. EU has so much rely on US for many years. And maybe the Americans are tired of those reliance now. The Americans don't want to uh, be responsible for every country. So the American government, especially the current administration, believes that Americans have been cheated, Americans has been taken advantage of in many of this relationship. And what the current administration is doing is to reset that and in a way that will be American first. Well, that's cool. And I mean, every country should wake up and be held. Every leaders of this country should wake up and do something about their own state of affairs and not rely on the Americans. And if you extend it a little bit, even to Ukraine, the earlier Ukraine realizes that America is not, they're not going to be getting all the supplies that they need, the military supply that they need from the Americans anymore, they step up. In my opinion, they kind of step up a little bit because, especially with their drone, way of fighting the Russians, is a way of them saying, okay, they are defending themselves and all of that. So they step up And I think it's also important that every country of the world step up as well. For me, war is not the answer. War doesn't benefit anybody, whether it's physical war, you're going into physical war as countries to countries, or you're going to trade war between countries, two countries, or among countries where you find tripartite kind of war among them. Is not going to benefit anybody. It's the people that suffers from this war. One way or the other, people are the one that suffer. But as a result of this war, either you say that the people in ordinary people on the street, unfortunately, are the one that most likely gonna suffer from this war. And at the same time, part of what is happening now is that the uh, the the rapid evolving trade between the US and the Canada for the past few days now has also marked adjustments in the way in which they talk. Um, I mean, there are some sectors that are still having conversation, especially the military relationship between the two countries. They're still sharing intelligence and data and all of that with themselves. But there are some other conversation around the political parties in the state also collaborating with the Canadian current administration. There are a lot of things going on that I believe that is really really ugly. There are some political targeting as well. The Liberal government has deliberately aimed for the incoming September 8th counter tariff at specific US state with vulnerable Republican incumbent, because a lot of them are also very concerned. A lot of their candidates, the current administration candidates, are also very concerned about this war because already there are increase, in gas prices and the likes, on which we're going to get into very soon and give update on that. There are a lot of issues around that, and now a trade war with Canada is going to put more pressure on Washington ahead of the US midterm election. We have to see how that is going to go. And the US administration has also said that if Canada goes on with the counter tariff by January the 1st of 2027 next year, certain tariff is going to be imposed again on Canadian goods. But Canadians seems to be ignoring that from what I'm seeing here. They don't care, and Americans are really really hungry that um, Canada and China are the only two countries in the world that is imposing counter tariff on them. That anytime they put on a tariff, don't retaliate, just wait and start negotiating. That's the Americans' position, but Canada and China are pushing back on that. That we are not waiting. We have to just do something about it right away. So, and again, there are some other U.S. internal pushback where you have some senators also publicly applauding Canada removal of a seafood tariff. Like Senator Susan Collins kind of noted that she noted it and said still uh, our state, uh, lobster men from devastation, and is urging the Washington to reciprocate the goodwill. I don't think they will at this time, but they will still get back to the table. And some candidates are technically distancing themselves from the current administration in the state, but there's no way you can do that because, again, you have to run based on your records, based on the current administration records. And that's been the position of the leadership that you run, and that the president is on the ballot and the US president is on the ballot. So you have to run based on that. And that has its own advantages for candidates for these midterm elections. And, it also has some disadvantages. You can eat your cake and have it. So it goes both ways. And for the Canadian government, they are standing firm on this counter tariff, and the US government believes that the Canadian government leadership wanted to just score cheap points by saying specifically that, that the French language protection that Canada has is on the table. And they believe and they accused the Canadians that they deliberately did that because they know that they will most likely lose, or the race in Quebec is tight. And because this is a sensitive matter for the Quebecois when it comes to French language, they felt strongly that it's a sensitive matter for them. And the government of Canada kind of brought that up because they know that it's most likely going to be a political advantage for the current administration. And, that's their own point and that's their own views. It can be out of play. I don't know how true that is. We don't know how true that is. But it's a valid point. If they make one in their own opinion, they have the right to make that. So I don't know. I think that at this time, um, the people should be a priority and main concern for our leaders. And at I mean, in Canada, in America, the people, how they're going to be affected by this trade war should be something of concern to our leaders. And, they should just find a way to do something about it, because it's really, really ugly. I don't like it. Many people don't like it. And we have to do something about it. And the other part to it is that there are some sectors that are going to be hit. There's a rising impact on those sectors, like the auto industry. The auto industry is really under threat in Canada. Yesterday, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Yesterday, Trump, the US president, posted and said all the Canadian companies should come back to America. And you know what? He was of the opinion that these are companies that left the US in the first place. So they are not even supposed to have left in this first place. And now that they are left, they should come back. So there's a cross-border tension is growing. And with this 50% duty on Canadian cars and steels by January 1st of next year, it's really going to be devastating. So some of these companies are carefully analyzing their cost benefit analysis and seeing the threat and the risk impact and all this assessment that they need to do to carry out. They are very, very, very much on top of it now. They are this because this is going to hurt auto investment. Honda, for instance, announced it will not build another North American plant, unless the CUSMA or USSMA is extended. You can imagine, because again, this followed the suspension of several Canadian projects, and that they had earlier announced. So, yeah, companies, executives, their boards are really, really finding it hard to make tough decisions at this point in time. And there are a lot of provinces in Canada, for instance, that are really, really vulnerable. I mentioned Ontario and Quebec earlier on. They are facing massive auto exits. You know, British Columbia is also facing heavy losses due to US 50% tariff that is eating their forested products, their plastic, their cement is ugly. It's really, really going ugly. And it's going ugly for some Americans too, because there are a lot of sectors that are affected, like the way Susan also mentioned. That's the senator, the way she has mentioned earlier on, that this is going to definitely affect our own states, and that the US government should also reciprocate on the fact that Canadian government remove some tariff on lobsters and food for the restaurant business and the likes. So everybody is heated in one way or the other, and we really need to do something about it. So we are here to talk about some of the ways, or some of the things that we feel can help in solving these problems. In resolving some of these issues, the trade crisis and border diplomacy standoff requires, both immediate economic attention and long-term, structural dependency. Um, Experts in economics and trade and policy have proposed several solutions as how best these two countries can both address these issues strategically to break the deadlock. I mean, in the short run, if you ask me, I would say sovereignty issue should be dropped, because now Canadian seems not to be interested in becoming part of America. From what I've seen, most Canadians doesn't want to, and I feel that maybe it's high time that is dropped completely, because again, it takes two to tango, and Canadians seems not to be interested in that now. And things around any conversation around the sovereignty, I think, of Canada should just you know, be off the table, because again, Canadians are not interested in all these French language issues, and maybe also this conversation around restricting, or it's kind of not allowing Canadians to determine their future trade and all of that is something that Canadian is not willing to accept at this time. From what I have seen here, um, maybe having to cut that out of the discussion will help in the short long to de-escalate this issue. And the other side again is things around uh, uh, tariff drawdown and all of that. For me, I mean, like implementing a kind of synchronized and conditionalized freeze where the US lower its own recent 50% tariff. If they're able to do that, maybe the Canadians will also roll back their own, in the upcoming September one. Maybe that will solve the issues if the US say, okay, we're pulling down back from that. I believe it was the Section 338 tariff and Section 232 tariff levy on the exchange or the export of Canadians goods to them. Maybe Canadians will do the same. I believe Canadians will do the same if it has done, but I doubt if the Americans are ready to just lower all of this tariff, as the case may be. Then resuming talk is another thing. Like I've been start to even have this conversation, and I think the Canadians are of the opinion that if the US is much more ready and serious, then they are ready to, and they see something tangible on the table, then they are ready to go back. Oh, well, there's a fair point in that. And at the same time, what about if the US is not signaling any of those? Does it mean that it's just going to like be silent about it and just let the the war continue? I mean, there are cases for that, and at the same time, you just have to You just have to, weigh the risk and the opportunities that we may have here. So they know better than I do. They know better than ordinary people on the street. We just feel that even though we don't have the details of the insight, deep insight into these conversations, we just felt that there are some, you know, uh, uh, let me say, uh, general ways of doing things. If the mountain doesn't go to Muhammad, the Muhammad too can go to the mountain. That kind of a thing. It's just a way of saying, okay, if you're not ready to do something, maybe I can start off and see if you will respond, something like that. And other things that is escalating now, by way of short time is escalating, is to find a way to drop some rhetoric. I think that's not helping now. And it's not helping in any way. I think in the short term that can help to bring back the conversation. um, Maybe in the long run, uh, there are some things that can be done, but in the short run, these are some of the things that can help out. Oh, the other thing that can help out in the short term would be that leveraging Canadian vulnerability, because Canadians seems to be vulnerable to the Americans, and that's again the the conversation around we don't need them, they need us from the U.S. Current administration. They believe that they don't need Canadians. They don't need Canadians and anything from Canada. They don't need the auto. They don't need their cars. They don't need their food. They don't need their steel. They don't need anything. Or in reality, um, or in practice, some states do. Some states can't do without those. Some of this, manufacturers and then consumers, American consumers, are also pivoting into some other ways that they can use some American products. But some of them still do because of how integrated these two economy are. But in practice, Canada seems to be so much dependent, vulnerable to the state. If you talk about the energy option, Canadian utilizing this massive leverage for as the provider of 63% of the US crude oil exports, and 81% of its electricity is threatening export taxes to force the US back to fair negotiation. So if they are going to leverage um, on the oil and gas, and of which Alberta is not even, it's not ready to even make it to be something on the table, right? They are using the midterm election and all of that. I just feel that you know uh, just whatever you need to do as a leaders at both hand, and just do something that will make people happy. Domestic protection and things around uh, pivot strategy. Canada is doing a lot of that now, where they're diversifying uh, their trade partners, across the globe, and they're also strengthening their domestic industry. Canadian government has spent billions of dollars to on diversification fund to help businesses that are really affected by this tariff, and they have shifted, as we have noted, on their procurement strategy from US vendors and contractors to Europe, mostly in Europe. For the long-term one, the best will be CUSMA, which is the core of the whole conversation. It's kind of lapsed this year. It was supposed to be renewed. The America back on the back off from it. Maybe talk might resume between the U.S. Canada Mexico agreement. If they're able to achieve that, maybe that would be good in the long run because that's what actually gives businesses the confidence that they need. So if negotiation can start around that, and if they can reach some compromise and agreement in that regard, that would be cool. That would be good for businesses. That would be good for people in the three countries, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. You know, so all of this will help out in many ways. So again, this is um, an issue that needs the attention of both countries. Canada has leverage, especially in on energy, which could impact the US midterm. The question is Canada ready to use that? I mean, maybe that will even escalate the more. I don't know. But me, I'm looking forward to how we can de-escalate. That's what we are here for at Today Open Diary, having conversation around how the ordinary people can be in the best position to help themselves. And very soon we'll be going to cost of living after a short break. But again, it's good to have conversations like this. It helps in many, many ways. Again, there Canada has diversification funds. They're utilizing it. They're spending more than they're even getting now. The breakdown of the alternative trade agreement, Canada is pushing its own trade relations to Europe and even to Asia by extension, because there are some, uh, like India, for instance, and China. Canada is finding a way to have a conversation with them and see how best they can engage these countries and get the best deal from them. Again, we are going to be going into the next conversation around the rising cost of living, and we'll be talking about that. Um, Again, tell us in the chat what you think. I'm gonna put that in the chat. Tell us in the chat. Put it in the chat. Tell us in the chat what you think. Tell us in the chat what you think about this issue. Let us know. So let us know your view. Let us know what you think about it. So we'll talk about this issue. We want to hear from you. Let us know. Now let us hear from you. I will give a few minutes for that. We're trying to post most to stuff questions on this. Okay, that's so cool. And again, if you want to put where you're watching from, please do that. And do you agree with what we have discussed? And before we go into the second discourse, okay, I'm putting that here. So let us know. We'll be happy to hear from you. Then we'll talk about some of the solutions that we mentioned earlier on. What do you think government should do? And when we mean by government, we mean the US government and the Canadian government. What do you think these two governments should do? So put it in the chat. We'll be very happy to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these topics? And again, for the teaser, brain teaser, how many diaries can you see? Please put it in the chat. How How many diaries? How many diaries do you see? Do you see? How many diaries do you see on the shelf? So let us know. How many diaries do you see on the shelf? Let us know. See you soon. 10 minutes. See you again in 10 minutes. Thank you. Oh yeah, welcome back. It's 10 minutes already. So excited to take on the next conversation. I'm very happy to see you guys again. Oh, thank you for your responses. I can see. Thank you. Thank you. Commenting. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Now, the rising cost of living, we just want to give an update on that. And part of the reason why we are, giving updates on this is because of the feedback that we receive from the people. And, people felt that cost of living is no longer the same the way it has always been. And that's the more reason why our conversation is moving from government and international relations to something that affects almost everyone. And that's the cost of living. The first question again is life actually getting harder to afford? And that's particularly about affordability. And affordability here is mainly housing, food, transportation, everyday expenses, interest rates, wages and salaries, young people trying to build their future, right? Young Canadians, young Americans, young Indians, young Nigerians, young uh, Ghanaians, young Australian, name it. Across the globe, affordability is becoming harder in some ways. And I remember when we had Niagara on the Lake, that's the border of Canada and the US. We had the opportunity of talking to, having a conversation and interviewing a guy who was visiting from Germany. And he's on the video too. You can watch the video. We have the short videos on the channel. That gives you the opportunity to, hear from his own perspective. And the interview is also on the long videos. So if you go to the channel, you see some of the shorts. You could watch less than, you know, 45 seconds video, 40-second videos. And if you have a little bit of time, you can watch a few minutes of video about in cost of living, comparing Europe, and in this case, Germany, and North America, and in this case, Canada and the US. And he was visiting his brother, and he was mentioning that he rented a condo, and his condo is $350, 350 euros. And that same condo, his brother is renting, almost of the same square meters. His brother was renting here, and his brother is paying like three times of what he's paying for that same condo. And that's not to say that things are not, the cost of reason is not rising in China as well, because things have, prices has gone up. Maybe the rate at which they were all going up is different. Maybe it's going at a higher rate in Canada, and is maybe going at a lower rate in Europe. Who knows? But it's very important for us to know that the cost of living is really, really affecting people, is affecting families, is affecting relationship, and it's just, I mean, it's just too much for people to really, really go through this, and go through this at this point in time is really, really sad. So cost of living is affecting, you know, all these areas of our lives, and want to find a way to address this cost of living. So if we start from housing, housing in Canada, we want to take all of these issues one after the other, and we'll look at these issues as it affect us as Canadians and as Americans. So let's consider on this one, you know, on this ones. So if you take housing, for instance, I remember when we first came to Canada, like I was mentioning on rent. Rent was, I mean, we landed in Ottawa, and Ottawa seems to be very, very much affordable when it comes to rent when we first came. And if you even need cheaper housing, like for rent, you go into Quebec, Gatineau. Gatineau is in Quebec, and that's you will even find much more cheaper apartment to rent. You know, and and you know, it's much cheaper to rent in even in Gatineau. But we were at the Ottawa at the time. But then again, having to live in Ottawa was cheaper compared to other cities like Toronto, Vancouver, other places, major cities. But after a while, rent started increasing in these two areas as well. You know, so now if you bring rent closer here to Canada and maybe across Canada and US, people in both countries are asking similar questions like, can I afford a home for those that are thinking of buying? Um, and the interest rate is not also helping, like inflation is rising, and the Bank of this Bank Canada and the Fed in the US, the Federal Reserve, are always using interest rate to fight inflation. And when interest rate is going up and they are thinking of adjusting, inflation is going up and they are thinking of adjusting interest rate, then that is going to fizzle down to mortgage. You know, mortgage rate is going to go up as well. And if that happens, and if people are seeing that that's happening, they may not be thinking of buying a house because they will ask themselves, can they afford to pay down the down payment? Can they afford to continue to service this mortgage? That's been a very huge question for most Americans and Canadians. Then the other questions around grocery. Can they afford grocery? Uh, can can they afford to buy a car? Can they afford to keep their family intact when it comes to, monthly bills? And most young people still doesn't know if they're able to, if they will be able to have the future that they so desire. Like you have these Canadian dreams, these American dreams. A lot of young folks are asking, is this still there? Is this still something that they can achieve? And recent data illustrate why it's really worth discussing, because Canadian inflation has remained really, really elevated, while wages has been around, maybe increased around 3%, but is not really cutting it. In the US, inflation is 3.6, 3.7 year over year, especially even in July of this year. So inflation is really causing increases in all of these areas. And if you talk about housing, inflation is becoming a barrier for most uh, Canadians and Americans to see if they can afford to even, maybe even rent or maybe if they want to buy. Affordability is also a very major issue, so constraint in the US and in Canada. Like for instance, most families or even individuals that want to buy, we ask, can they afford to uh, afford the down payment? And down payment here, some would say, okay, they can afford 5% of the value of the house or maybe 10%. But historically, uh, based on our own advice, it has always been when it comes to buying a house, make sure that at least you have 20-25% down payment because that allows you to waive the insurance that would have been covering the mortgage. That's the loan provider, the financial institution. You it will take off that percentage of of your the insurance of it. And that's not to say that you're not still going to insure the house because you're still going to pay property insurance, and you're still going to be asking yourself, can you afford the property taxes from the city, the municipal, and the state or the province? Then the house maintenance and house supplies. Can you afford those if you have to buy a house now? So, uh, if you are thinking of equally moving further from the major city to maybe a small town, you also have to put into consideration a lot of factors as well. Maybe your work, are you able to transport back easily to this major city whenever you need to go to work? You have to ask yourself some of these questions. The other question you have to ask is the other question you have to ask is when it comes to you navigating other places, like maybe you have doctor's appointment, you have appointment for your kids, maybe they need to go for some recreational activities and for school and the likes, how easy it's going to be for you when you're in small town. You have to put all of these things into consideration as well. So if you're watching from Canada or the US, my question is buying a house still realistic for anyone starting out there? And I just need a yes or no answer. If you can, put it in the chat. This is much more easy. Yes or no. Yes, yes or no. Very easy question here, please. If you can, I will appreciate if you can respond to that. Okay. Yeah. Let us know your thoughts on that. For me, I would say it's not just about buying a house, it's about you also trying as much as possible to know, to have the house inspected, has that house, check in so that you'll be able to know what you buy. For food, grocery, when you go to the mall and go for shopping, these days is almost like you're having 30 to 50% increase on everything you buy. Like to buy a loaf of bread, a slice of bread, or maybe to buy anything in the grocery these days is really expensive. Grocery prices, eating in restaurants. Sometimes we eat out, my family and I, but not as before, right? Because again, you're also trying to cut cost. Um, you want to buy meat or dairy, they are really, really gone up now. They are really gone up. Um, yeah, I want to buy cow meat, pig, fish. They are really, really very expensive now. I mean, in my own, calculation, I've seen that at the very least there are about 25 to 30% increase on all of this, goods, fruit, vegetables, even also essentials like buy humidifier, buy tiny sets, name it, whatever you want to buy in the house, TV. They have really, really gone up now. And what some people used to do, and what our advice is that take advantage of some discount rates, some discounted shops or stores. They have some of them around, like thrift store. If you want to buy shoes, clothes, thrift store, you might be able to get some discounts, even though most of them are used. But then I'm not even seeing much of difference in thrift stores these days because I'm noticing that when we first came, the prices of on thrift stores are relatively low compared to maybe you're shopping in a very large mall. But I'm not even noticing difference now from the prices of what I'm seeing because there seems to be almost the same thing. Like I think that my wife started noticing it first before I do, and that she was like, "It's like the prices are almost the same now for the used one and for the new one." And before you know it, we're not even interested in checking the used one anymore because there's no difference anymore within the two prices. So we just okay, you know what? Let's just buy the new. Yeah, just keep buying new things now. Or better yet, you can check Marketplace Facebook. That one is a platform. Everybody have all of this. Or you join your community uh, Facebook group or page. There will definitely be one in any city that you find yourself in US or Canada. The only advantage I see from the marketplace is that people can buy new things and it doesn't fit into their specification, or maybe they just use it once, they're no longer interested in it. Like you could literally still see something pretty new on Facebook Marketplace, and you might be very lucky to see something still new and you buy it at a very reduced price. But you also have to be careful because you're talking to a stranger online. That's the downside to that. The downside to it is that you never know who you're talking to and all of that. And if there's default in what you're buying, sometimes it can be very, very hard for you to get it back to the seller and have your money, back as well. I will give a very good example, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And that example is that I needed a micro SD card, and I saw one on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, okay, let me get that. And I got it, and I got it for $80. Yeah, I think it was $80. And when I wanted to test it before I left the place, but I couldn't get it tested, so I just took it and went back, came back home, and when I put it, I think okay. I think the problem was that I didn't go with the device that I wanted to put the micro SD on. So when I got on, I put it on it. There was nothing there, like it was empty. And I chat this person back, the seller, and it was like, oh, I should Google it. And there are sometimes maybe I need to format my system, blah, blah, blah. It was just giving different excuses. I say, I've used this before. I have one before I bought this one, and I don't have to format anything before I started using it. So I don't know. This is empty. And after a while, like one or two chats, it just closed the chat, button, and before I know it, there was no way I could contact him back. Okay, I said, well, no problem. Then I used my wife's Facebook page to, chat him again as if I want to buy a new one, as if I want to buy a new SD card. And he started responding to my wife's page as if, a new person wants to buy. And we have, a conversation around when I will come and pick it up and all of that, and the same place. When I got there, then I met him there, you know, and I was like, no, this is not nice. What you did is really, really bad because, again, I don't want to report you. Yet, I wanted to ensure that I'm able to get my money back before I take any action or reporting. And I said, well, I'm here now. I need my money back. Simple, plain. That's why I'm here. And it was like, okay, it's going to be in the laptop. It's going to test it. Blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, no problem. Bring your laptop, test it. Then he was with his laptop, brought his laptop on his car. Maybe even went because they lived around that area. Because again, when you're picking something on Facebook and people are also skeptical as well. They say, like, I won't blame them when they say they don't want you to come to their house and they should meet in a public space because for their safety as well, right? Understandably. And at the same time, that's also a sign for the buyer to know that, sometimes people that says they'll come and be in a public space might be giving you something that is that has defects, like you can't use it and you're paying for it. So again, he brought his laptop, he put his SD card on it, it wasn't working. It was literally empty. He said, you see for yourself. Can I have my money back? Then he gave me my money back. I have my money back because that's what I paid for. I paid for a goods. It's not working. Then I deserve to have my money back. And I got my $80 back. Then anything micro SD, things that I will not be able to be sure that, I'm going to be able to use it. I would rather just buy it from the store, and that's what I always suggest. Buy your stuff from the store. And again, there are some things that are just, you don't have to test it. Once you see it, that is good, is okay, not like my question. You have to put into another device to be sure that it's not empty, So these are ways people are getting to, survive these days and be able to buy goods, things cheap, as it were, And at the same time, there are some stores that you buy new stuff there, and they are new and they are discounted. During like November, as you're approaching now, there's going to be Black Friday. Things are going to be cheap. Just take advantages of all of those opportunity that comes your way. So, and again, the question is, what is that one grocery item that surprised you the most with its price? My own is bread. I was so shocked. You want to buy bread these days, love of bread is just crazy. I was like, the way to go about that is just to start baking your own bread, bake your bread body, and buy flour, buy all the ingredients and bake your own bread. It's healthy, you know. And the last bread that she baked was this banana bread, and it was nice, really like it. So yeah, let us know one particular grocery item that surprised you the most. When it comes to transportation, it just depends on how you're looking at it. It's planning your daily life and movement. When we first came to Canada, we had to use the like this kind of go pass kind of a thing where it's discounted for new immigrants, coming in as permanent residents and the likes, and or maybe even for temporary workers, for temporary students that are coming, is also cover us, when you're coming through that platform, and for work too, temporary workers. It covers us as well for that purpose. If you are looking forward to that as well. So yeah, this pass allows you to travel for free or at a discounted rate depending on your status, and you can take buses and trains, which kind of reduces your expenses. If you're buying a car, just so you know, you're not just buying a car. You're buying a car. You're going to pay insurance on it. I remember we talking to interviewing a guy recently, and I was telling us how the video is also on the channel. Check up the channel and look for how my car expenses, kind of my how my car insurance double the value of the car itself. It wasn't too surprising to me because I've always known that uh, car insurance here, there are many factors that are put into consideration to arrive at the policy, the premium that you're going to pay on your insurance, car insurance policy, right? And sometimes you pay $3,000 annually, even for a third party kind of insurance where you're not fully covered. You still pay very high on insurance, and yeah. So you just have to factor that in as well. You have to maintain the car at, as much as possible. And you also have to factor in winter. If you want to be going by go transport, public transport, which is good, you enjoy during the summer, the fall, and even sometimes spring. But when it comes to winter, you have to factor that into place as well, because sometimes you are at this bus station, the bus is not coming in as early as scheduled, maybe because of the snow, or sometimes they may not even show up. You have to wait there until the next one. Sometimes they are literally canceled for that route. How are you going to move, right? That's also things to consider. And at the same time, if you have a car too, you have to consider the winter tire because you have to be changing your tire. They are all season tires where it will last you for all of the season, which are good as well. And if you don't have that, then you have to, change your winter tires, your tires to winter tire every time, every day and there. And other things you have to consider is your long distance commuting. If you're commuting for a long distance, you also have to factor in that at the same time. So we're just letting some of the things you can do and work around this at the same time. So the same thing almost is applicable in the US, only that in the US, some state doesn't even witness snow at all. They don't even like experience winter snow. So all of these are the same actually for Canada and the state. The only addition to the states is that all this urban versus suburban, living, where you have to commute long distance, you know, and that's also important. Okay. And again, my questioning would be that would you rather want to live closer to work or pay more for housing? And pay more for housing or live farther away and spend more time and money commuting? Because again, you have to, it's a two-way thing. I mean, with work now, most work being hybrid, you wouldn't mind living farther away and working from home, or maybe you go to office once or twice in a week. That would be another way to go about it. So what would you prefer? You know, what's your preference when it comes to that? Then other bills are like your phone bills, your internet, your insurance, your clothing, your entertainment, things around personal care, hygiene, streaming subscription, also like in terms of childcare. Childcare is another major thing here, right? People spend a lot taking care of their kids. Yeah, it's very, very expensive, especially if you don't have subsidy. Government gives subsidy sometimes. People low income earner, but if you don't have one, you have to first of all look for a child care center that is enrolled with government that have a subsidy. And if you're unable to get that, then you will have to look for a privately run care center, which is really, really expensive. Sometimes some of them, and in the state, you can pay hundreds of dollars per hour, for your kids, or per day actually for your kids. It's most of the times per day. You can pay hundreds of dollars per day. And if you want to bring in the child care into your home, child care provider into your home, that you pay per hour. But if it is the center, most likely in most cases is per day. You can pay hundreds of dollars, you know, to these private childcare centers. And if in Canada, so you pay, but not as expensive as the state. The US one is way more expensive compared to Canada, as it were. The other thing to it is that there are some home care providers as well. So should you not be able to get childcare centers, the home care provider is another option that you can, take. The challenge sometimes is that for the childcare center, they are overbooked. Like, not overbooked, like there's no space and you have to be on a wait list. I've seen parents wait for years before they could even get their kids into these centers. We personally, we waited for almost 2.5 years before we got our son into a child care center. And that's why most people will opt for the home care. But again, the home care, a lot of people don't like the way that their kids are there. And at the same time, some of them can even be hard to get. To get the home care, sometimes it's really hard to get them in as well. So it's really, really hard. And when the kids grow to 4 years, then it's going to junior kindergarten, school related expenses. You have to buy some schools, public school, you might not need uniform for them, but some school require that you buy uniform, like customized uniform, or they'll give you a description of the type of, clothes, color, shape, and all of that of the look of the maybe short or pants, or maybe the shirt they can put on. Very specific. You have to buy those specifications, and this is also different from the normal clothing because the kids cannot use their own clothes, to school, and there are other expenses on having to buy, school related expenses like backpack and other stuff like that. I think the major one here is the interest rate. This this is very, 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 worrisome for most Canadians and Americans in terms of comparison between this interest rates, using it to fight inflation. Um, when you look at interest rates as of August 2026, the Bank of Canada rate was at 2.2%, while the US Federal Reserve Fund target the rate between 3.5 to 3.75. The two administration would have preferred that this interest rate is lowered. But again, this central bank of Fed, Federal Reserve in US, are independent. The government is not supposed to intervene in their decisions. So if you are trying to buy a house today, uh, you have to be watching very closely what the interest rate are, the interest rates, what they are, whether in Canada or the US. The point here is that, which I always tell people know, is that in Canada, every 5 years, you have to renew your rate. You have to go back to the financial institution, and based on the current interest rate at that prevailing time, that's what your interest rate is going to be adjusted to. And we all know that within 3 to 5 years, something usually happens in the world. But in the States, you can lock in your interest rate as early as possible at a percentage and lock it in for the duration of the time in which you're going to be servicing, paying your mortgage. So if you plan to pay your mortgage within, let's say, 15 years or 20 years, you can lock in your interest rate for 20 years and you don't have to worry about renewing. So if you're lucky to start your mortgage at, let's say, 2%, then you lock that in for the duration of that 20%, 20 years. And that seems to be what I like, you know. But this idea of having to come back every 5 years in Canada is really, really can be troubling. I have a friend, um, he started his mortgage, around that COVID period. Was it COVID or shortly before COVID? Shortly before COVID, yes. Just shortly before COVID, and or around that COVID period. And his interest rate was low, but when he had to renew this year, it's just shoot up, just jump up. And that's why most Canadians and even American Canadians are really, really very, very careful now, that they don't want to make long-term commitments because of this interest rate problem and the uncertainty around tariff is another challenge that's making people to just stay out of mortgage for now, most people. And again, it's not wages are not being increased as a result of this rising cost of living. And on top of that, people are not even sure if they are able to keep their jobs. So, I mean, people are weighing all the things that are going on now and see how best they can tackle it, all of these issues that are going on for them. So, and our own take is that young folks can be able to still build a better future for themselves. Let's say for today now, imagine you are 20 years or 25 years old today, and you are starting your career. Most students will have a student debt. And again, they're also looking for their first apartment in their 20s, early 20s, and eventually if they're able to, you know, get an apartment, or maybe they're even looking forward to buying a home or to start a family. And that's why most people now delaying starting a family until maybe late 20s or maybe in their 30s. You know, maybe they also want to save and invest for their retirement. Earlier on, there are a lot of pressure on the young folks now. Um, I don't know, is that part becoming harder or easier for them? It's a very thoughtful question. For young folks now, can they really say that it's really hard for them at this point in time, or it's easier for them at this point in time to start a family, to start paying their student loan, because again, the state owned is even way more higher. Before some people, students will graduate, they are already in debt in six figures, over 100,000 in debt in student loan alone. And Canadians have student loan as well, but in most cases not as compared to the student in US. And part of the resources or benefits that the Canadian students usually enjoy is now even taken away from them, especially in Ontario, where students have always enjoyed OSAP. And OSAP is taken away now from students. They can't enjoy that anymore. It's crazy. Like literally, a lot of students are like in pain now. And I cannot get it from government parts as well, because some people are also taking advantage of WhatsApp. They are using it, and they are taking advantage of it. That's it. It's not fair on the taxpayers, because it's a taxpayers' money. That government also want to ensure that these funds are effectively utilized, right? It's just a few number of bad apples, abusing WhatsApp. Maybe government should have just find a way to review, evaluate, and assess it to see how best they can service this WhatsApp for students. And for those that really needed to get approved for WhatsApp, because for young folks now, it's really becoming so hard to live, to get by. Student debt is there before they even start work at all. Now they're taking their first car, they're talking about moving out of their parents' homes and get their own apartment. Uh, Many of them are still, staying with their parents now because they want to save some money. And some that have moved already, they are moving back in just to be able to save money and be able to service the debts, the student loan. And some of them are thinking, oh, maybe they need their first car again, like I mentioned. It's really, really hard for young folks today. High housing costs. Some of them are living with their friends, like roommate. They have a roommate. They are sharing their room together, and that's what most people usually do as well when they are coming in for the first time, and especially they are single. They share rooms, share apartments, and that's safe cost for them. Then again, they have to compete to get a job. And these days, unemployment is rate is high, and at the same time, people can't really be sure that they're going to be getting a job as soon as possible. Some are losing their jobs, and it's crazy. At the same time, some of them are thinking, oh, should I even go back to for postgrad? Again, if you go back to postgrad, you're going to go back into more debt, because not just only you've paid tuition, you're going to be paying for school supply and other living expenses on campus. So, or you want to just keep working and schooling at the same time? It's hard to combine the two at the same time, but a lot of students were able to, do that, and a lot of people are able to do that, and they're fine. And you also have to consider higher everyday expenses. Is it becoming harder to save now or to invest now? And we always know that for Americans, you say the retirement pension account, you have to 401k uh, as early as possible, early on, start putting money into it, so that way your Roth account, you start, maximizing and then maxing out the tax-free accounts that you have there. And at the same time, for the Canadian counterpart, you have your RRSP, you have your TFSA. As much as possible, start maxing them out every year, year by year, and putting money there, so that when you're retired, when you get to 60 years, you're retiring, or 65, as the case may be, you can comfortably have some significant investment and savings, and that way you can rely on it for your retirement. And these are challenges. There are opportunities around it. If you're a young guy here, young folks, maybe entrepreneurship might be the way to go for you. You might not necessarily having to think of maybe getting a job. You might be thinking of, building your business, as early as possible. Thank you. Someone is saying that this was not the future we were promised. We can only hope for the best. Okay, let's hope for the best. There are quite a number of limitations um, here. I think SB is saying something like that. Let's hope for a better future. SB. Yeah, thank you. And there's someone saying proper planning can solve some of these problems. Thank you. Yeah, well planned. I mean, you have to first of all have your own personal planning, and also hope that government has a yeah plan plan. I mean, you can't overplan. Yeah, you can't overplan as the case may be. So yeah, those are the way to go, and those are the way to navigate this challenging period. And I was also mentioned, if you're a young folks, you might think of thinking of how best you can start your own business, or maybe work for a while, and you just transition into having your own company or business, and leverage on new technologies, AI. You can decide to get a remote job or digital business or whatever. There are a lot of information here that you can start building on for a better future. And the future is going to be bright for us. I don't want to say it's going to be hard. And then, yeah, so for Canadians and for Americans, the future is going to be bright for us. Let's know what you've learned today as far as this conversation is concerned. Are you experiencing the same economic condition? Let us know. Um, and even if you're outside of Canada and the US, let us know what you're experiencing now. Let's have a conversation around it. Is your income keeping up? Can you afford to even, your pay your bills at this time? Let us know. And if you look at both countries, which one has it more easier? Is it Canada? Is it US? We're not necessarily here to just compare which one is better, but how the other party can quickly catch up is what we're looking at it. What are the gaps is here that can, quickly be filled? So, uh, so tell us why you feel it's easier in Canada than US, or it's easier in US than Canada, and tell us why you feel that way. And if you're able to let us know, it's easier for us to just, okay, maybe these are the areas that you should be looking at when it comes to how Canadians have handled this matter. Or these are the ways uh, um, uh, Canada should look at this issue. And because this is the way US has handled it, vice versa kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's a very good conversation around the rising cost of living. And we just wanted to uh, get a quick update on the on the Nepal flood, like the flash flood. That flash flood is crazy. Is I mean, I don't know, because there seems to be reports there and there, updates there and there, and that's the world view we are looking at now. A very quick recap. Last week, or not, yeah, last week there was a and magnitude earthquake of about 5.2% and 5.2 magnitude earthquake that happened in Nepal, and that kind of break like this island tsunami of ice, rock, and all of that hitting the community in Nepal, and you know about nearly 1,000 people now I believe to have died. They have confirmed 950 dead, and thousands of people still missing. And I believe as of this morning, unfortunately, they are still looking for over 4,400 people, and you know, in about 4,200 are counted to remain unaccounted for, and among them is 592 foreigners from 39 countries. That's huge, including Americans and Canadians tourists who are part of this. They went to Nepal. You know, uh, Canadians are saying over 30 of the cities in Canada is saying 30, over 30 Canadians are, are involved in this incident. Unfortunately, they're still uh, in search of them. Um, they are missing. About 32 Canadians are missing now. Canadians and permanent residents, and several tourist groups and religions. Some went for pilgrimage. They were swept away from this disaster just at the border of China from Nepal. It's so devastating. I can't imagine what the families of these people are going through now. We have a video on the channel, you can check it out. Um, Especially, there's even one short video around the message of hope for the victim of Nepal. And there's a long video of someone we also interview. We kind of, gave us an insight into some of the things that are happening in Nepal. So check them out. Uh, it's so devastating. I can't imagine what the families are going through now. The government of Nepal has deployed over 20,000 emergency personnel and military troops just to scale the search. I'm not too sure if, I just hope that it didn't rain over through the weekend, because any rain now is going to really, really, really make the flash flood to be much more devastating. Rescue efforts were still um, ongoing, and I think at some point they were paused it over the weekend, maybe due to bad weather or something. But yeah, they paused that, and I just hope things get better. I just hope that they get back to rescuing people, especially the hydro power workers who are still stuck in the tunnel. Hoping that every one of them gets rescued at this point in time. I hope that the relationship between China and Nepal can improve in such a way that they can allow more foreign help and from different parts of the world, including America and Canada, to help out in this devastating, very, very terrible uh, incident uh, that we are all experiencing now. Is really, really, really devastating for uh, for families, for everyone that is affected in this incident. There are some, live updates on this. If you want to check the live update on this, BBC has a live update. You can always check out their own live update on this. I believe some other news outlet has their own live update on this as well. as of maybe 20 minutes ago, there are some locals that join clean up efforts and search for survivors. Because again, the over 20,000 troops and rescue personnel are not enough for this rescue mission. And that's why locals has to join in this search as well. Um, yeah, people, this is really, really bad, but we hope that things improve. They are getting some bodies of people, they are recovering them from the hydropower site as at maybe an hour ago, no, 30 minutes ago actually. They are rescuing some people, search are ongoing. Uh, Again, they recover bodies, they also rescue some people from that same, um, the hydropower site, the tunnel that some of these workers were stuck. Is unfortunate. Uh, some kids are missing. Children. I saw a video of a child that was pulled out of the mud. She survived. And that was a miracle. Again, death toll keep rising. I just hope that it doesn't become too bad. That's for people to take in. And more importantly for me is to really take a stock, an assessment of this incident after the cleaning and rescue is done, and allowing people to bury their loved ones and allow families to reunite again from those that must have been rescued alive. And maybe after some weeks and months, they can maybe set up a panel to look into the incident and how best they can most likely be proactive in response to emergency like this. Sometimes you can't really predict things like this happening, but there are ways in which we can, you know, through research, through some collaborative effort with all these weather agencies across the globe to understand what might most likely happen. Just like when you hear hurricane alert and all of that, just putting people on notice and evacuating them in time before the incident happens. So just having conversation around that and inquiries around that will go a long way to help Nepal and every other, countries and uh, places in that region. Nepal and the surrounding. Our prayers, our thoughts are with the families, with the victims. We hope that at this time you find rest, you find hope, you find peace in your mind, and just be strong. You're not alone. Know that you're loved across the globe. People are very ready to help the government of Nepal and the people of Nepal from North America, America, Canada, even Europe, across the globe. When you need help, reach out, as much as you can. In fact, I would say that Nepal should not, in fact, the European government and Canadian and American government should just go there and help. And I hope they will be welcomed, you know, just help, even without them, making all these requests and all of that. Now, we have an idea of what they will most likely need. We just offer to help right away. And let's see if it's going to be welcomed by the government of Nepal. I know that there's some help that has been received now from all these places. It's just for us to go further and further, to say, oh yeah, we want to give you more help, even though you ask for these supplies, but we are giving you more, just to help you and your people to navigate this challenging time. So yeah, thank you guys for your time. We will be having this conversation on Wednesday, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturdays. We'll be having all this conversation. We look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday. We'll send out all the meeting links and come to the channel, start the channel, and join us in this conversation. Very much happy to see you, and thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Bye.